Welcome to the Internet Money Podcast. I have my good friend, Shenny. He is the founder at Icarus Growth. He is an expert system builder for sales companies, for companies just in general. So, Shenny, if you only had 1 minute to tell the audience how to launch and grow a successful business, what would you say to them?
Number one, find a skill. Number two, find people who do that skill as a service, because you want to do a B2B agency for the most part. It takes the least capital in order to get going. Number three, cold emails, cold DMs, cold outreach. Those are the cheapest ways to get clients, and content as well. Just talk about the journey. Number four, get on calls with people, run through the sales process, i.e. discovery, which is the most important part, because you get to understand their pain points, what they're going through as a business. You get to get a sneak peek into who they are and what they do on a day-to-day basis, which will make everything you've done before that even better. And then close them, get some clients on board, get some team on board. Don't spend all of your money, and then from there you can grow to the moon.
Well, I personally want to buy a Lambo with the first client I signed, but unfortunately, I'll now have to save. So tell us a little bit about how you got into this like automation system builder niche. Were you instantly doing this, or did you start with a different kind of business? How'd you get into this whole internet money game?
So I'll spare the entire story, because it involves me getting fired from a previous job, and me failing over and over and over and over and over again. But I was initially doing lead generation for a bunch of different businesses, ranging from e-commerce to landing page agencies and basically everything in between. And over time, as skills have sort of like come my way, because I've been introduced to people who did different things, or I'd been, privy to certain conversations which have opened up certain avenues for me to learn other things. We went from, just straight up lead generation to lead generation and sales. So my business partner is David Jacob, who is sales savant, one of, if not the best salesperson that I know, just it in general. And we both combined our skills and expertise into doing lead generation and sales. I've always been pretty good at fiddling around with Zapier stuff and make.com stuff and making Google Drive folders and all that good stuff. So I just put all of that information and energy towards creating a really good project system that would help our team members do the work as efficiently as humanly possible. But we were just doing a lot of lead generation and sales. We started a SaaS, which was basically a smart lead competitor. I don't know if anybody remembers Maility, which would have been amazing if we, had the developer skills to back the sales and marketing skills that we came in with. Then we started like placing sales setters and closers with business owners. And then we went back to lead gen, and then we realized, you know what? I think we have synergies with other things now after all of the experience that we have. So now we still work together, but we don't work in the same exact business model. So David basically does a lot of sales coaching. I create sales processes, and I give him the sales processes that he sells to his clients. And I also create project management systems and help do a bit of lead generation for other businesses, so that one, they have a project management system that has clients in it, and two, they have sales systems that have leads in it. So that's kind of what we do.
Yeah, so let's talk about sales systems, because some people might be on here and you're like, bro, what are you talking about sales system? I got Calendly, Booking Link. What else do I need? So talk to them a little bit about the things that people should have in place, and maybe at what stages they should start having them in place. Like, let's say someone's 0 to 10K, or they're 10K to 50. Like, talk to us a little bit about like what systems and what stages.
So if we're talking about particularly just for stages and for the time at which you should start to leverage certain things, I'm pretty adamant that there's probably only 6 tools that you will ever need in order to grow a business beyond 30, 40, 50K a month. Airtable, Make, Smart Lead, a paid chat GPT, and like 2 others. And those alone will be all that you, and like Apollo for like leads and stuff. And there's going to be some other things here, there, and everywhere that you could use as well. But those are all that you would need in order to have all of the infrastructure that you would need to bring people in and help do some of the sales activities for you, i.e. setters coming in and, helping you out with cold calling and following up with people and booking calls in and stuff like that. And also for yourself. So when you're like starting out in this like you're just you by yourself, 0 to 3 or 4K, get a CRM in place just so that you're being organized, and get a Airtable, just cheap, easy Kanban board, and get Smartly going. And you basically have everything that you need just to get your first 4, 5, 6 clients. And then when you hit the point of what I call self maximization, which is when there's more things to do than there are hours in the day. Once you get to that point, you simply have to hire, you have to get more leverage for your time. That's when leveraging automations a lot more, leveraging AI and AI agents a lot more, leveraging templates and things that have already worked, templatizing them, creating SOPs out of them, and then bringing on members of staff to help you out. That's where things kind of all come together at that point. So if you're talking 0 to 10K, 10 to 50K, and 50K and above, there isn't a strict rule. It's more so just about when do you hit that point of self-maximization, and whatever MRR that is, it could be 4K, it could be 24K. You would then just need to take the requisite steps to just make things a bit easier for you to use, like a bit easier for you to, apply leverage to. So those would be the things there.
So for our beginners out there, you mentioned two products that seem to be must-haves. One was a CRM and the other was Airtable. Airtable seemed like for the Kanban board. Talk to us a little bit about, do you have a recommendation on what kind of CRMs people should set up, because you set these up for other people?
Yes, close.com. If you are doing, if you're sort of like working by yourself and you just need something to help you manage your leads, and you are getting leads because you're doing the thing that you're meant to be doing, which is doing a bunch of cold outreach and a bunch of sales, you're going to need a CRM, because a CRM is going to be the thing that will allow you to notice that, oh, I have 25 people I got on calls with that didn't close. Let me speak to all of them again and see if I can get them back into the pipeline. There's been so many times where because I speak to agency owners all the time inside of coaching programs, and they say, oh, we have like a bunch of people that we just realized we were on calls with for a bit that just didn't, close. I'm like, how many? I was like, yeah, 40 or 50 people. Okay, so did they all have budget? Were they all qualified? Yeah, they were all qualified. When did you last speak to them? Yeah, like 5 months ago. Do you think it'd be a good idea to speak to them again? Maybe. What do I say? Well, why did you not close them? Like, what was the situation there? Oh yeah, they went with a competitor. Okay, very simple email blast. Hey, first name, how has work been with XYZ competitor? Great. Now you have an email blast that's probably booked you 8 calls, and those 8 calls will probably turn into 2 or 3 new clients. You can't do that if you don't have a CRM and you're not tracking stuff. So, and I would always recommend close just because it's just clean and it's not as bulky as a HubSpot or a high level. So, yeah.
All right, so we've got our CRM in place. We're feeling happy because we're about to get some new sales. I feel like you're talking directly to me. And then let's talk about Airtable. What are we using Airtable for? You mentioned Kanban board. What else are we doing in there?
Everything else. Airtable does absolutely everything else. It could be fulfillment, it could be accounting, it could be marketing, it could be managing your content, it could be repurposing content. Airtable can do the entire thing. And all you would need is one paid account, one user or 2 users on that account. If you've got like someone else who's helping you out with the stuff, it's like $15 a month, something along those lines. And you can create every single element of your business that's not the CRM. Like, use Airtable. If you're not using Airtable, you're missing a trick. You're missing a serious trick. And the reason why I'm as adamant as I am on it now is because Airtable was designed the way that SaaS products are designed. Having looked at how a SaaS is run from the back end, looking at Google, looking at Firebase, and looking at a bunch of like big like data storage, data warehouses, and looking at the code on the back end, it's just tables. It's tables that are then represented in very nice HTML on the actual web page where you're clicking stuff. But the tables are the thing that powers the system. And in Airtable, you have the data, which is just tables, and then you have interfaces, which is the UI that you can make out of those tables. Because of the things that you can put in those tables, whether they be, different fields for, let's say, for example, we're just talking about project management here specifically. You could have just a table, and that table is the client's name, their email, their ID for their Slack user ID, their Slack channel ID, their CRM ID, and a couple of other things, maybe even their website and stuff like that. That information can be carried in many different places if you put it in Airtable and you just jerry rig a bunch of automations so that things appear where they're meant to appear. And when you have that in place, you can make Airtable do some wondrous things. Better than what can be done in ClickUp, better than what can be done in Monday, better than what can be done in Asana. And Trello and Notion, I'm just not going to talk about because Notion's too freeform and Trello sucks. I hate. Am I allowed to swear? Can I swear?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Trello sucks dick. Trello's fucking terrible. I hate it with a passion. I'm so happy that I never have to see Trello ever again because I used to use it a lot and it's terrible.
All right, so people are listening. They're like, "Hey, I get my Calendly, I dump it into Notion. Apparently, that's not good to do." And talk to them a little bit about like, well, what do they do with their docs? Are you just saying, "Hey, like, be tracking your Google Docs in some kind of Airtable"? Talk to people a little bit about. We've got Airtable, we got our CRM. Now we need to like create some kind of assets, right? Like, what other kind of tools we need here?
I mean, the only real asset you would need, and again, I'm speaking to people who would be in the, I guess, the 0 to 10 or 15K a month range, or people who aren't using cold outreach and other more, I can't call them guerrilla methods, but like more like feet on the ground methods of getting clients. You're going to want something that's basically going to get you a lot of see when we're talking about docs here, there's a difference between like sales assets and gamma PowerPoints and just having a Webflow account with a landing page that looks good. More often than not, people who want something fancy just need a good landing page and a video on that landing page that says, hey, this is what I do, and it's 2 minutes long. And then underneath that, just a couple of pieces of content that you've made before, like YouTube videos or whatever it may be. And the moment you get those in and you can, just show people that this is what you do, the more credibility that you have than just a sales letter that you patched together, which was your first piece of long form content that's going to read like arse. Like, you don't want that to be out there. You kind of want to write 5 or 10 of these before you start showing people stuff. So with regards to docs, that's kind of my opinion there. And I've never seen anybody get to 20, 25K a month and either stay there or go way higher with like sales assets alone. They need a landing page. Like, that's just the only other thing other than the other 5 tools that I mentioned prior that are kind of a must have.
Yeah, so we've got Smart Lead, and that's for cold emails. I guess you could throw in like a Drippy there. Shout out to my friends at Drippy for maybe like cold Twitter DMs. You've got Make instead of so. What's with the why throwing shade at Zapier here? What happened to our friends at Zapier?
Zapier stinks, man. Zapier's terrible, and the only reason why I say that it's terrible is because of the perspective that I'm taking when I use Make and other types of software rather than Zapier. Zapier is great if you have no intention of doing anything with your automations. If you need level 0 or level 1 of just, hey, I've made this thing here, can you sync it with something else? Then you can use Zapier, no problems. The problem with Zapier is that, one, it costs an arm and a leg to get as many Zap runs as you would need to run anything which is on a regular basis. And 2, the UI doesn't lend itself to being able to do a lot of stuff with minimal complexity. So when you set up a Zap, it's trigger at the top, action, 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 action. And then when you want a bunch of, conditional logic, it's a really bulky if else statement that just like spreads the UI and just makes things look really, really nasty. And organizing where nodes are meant to talk to each other is also really, really hard. Whereas in Make, everything is horizontal. So it starts here. So step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. And then you have like routers, which would be good for if else statements. So it's actually just easier on the eyes in that sense. So we've talked about UI, we've spoken about price. There are also way more functions inside of Make. So there's certain things that you can do, for example, with Slack inside of Make that you can't do in Zapier without making like API calls and just like leveraging a bunch of code. You can't make private channels in using Zapier you can't make private channels in Slack using Zapier, but you can do it in Make. And that tends to be the thing with a bunch of other things as well. So out of the 3, I would say, because of those 3 reasons alone, Make beats Zapier.
All right, so we introduced a new tool here. So, do you recommend that most companies like organize in something like Slack because you can then make those private channels?
So it depends, because I think the Slack is great for certain businesses and it's terrible for others, because there are some people who just refuse to use any new tech, and that's kind of part and parcel of the ideal client profile themselves. So if you work with local business owners, more often than not, they either don't use Slack, they're not privy to Slack in general, so they're just not aware of the platform itself, or they will only use WhatsApp, iMessage, Facebook Messenger, email. And because of that, getting them off of those platforms and making them use Slack tends to be a little bit hard. So Slack is great for communications because it's what basically everybody uses. But if your industry that you're going after, that you're working with, just doesn't use Slack, then use something else, basically. So it's more so about the industries that you're working with, the people that you're working with, and what the other alternatives are. This is pretty much the only reasons why.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you talked a lot about like automation, Airtable, different kind of systems we should set up. What are some systems that you think people, or like some of the biggest mistakes you see people make in their systems? Like you clearly mentioned not having a CRM. That's obviously one they need to do. Some kind of email blast system to follow up on leads that didn't end up closing. Talk to us about some like mistakes you see and how you could rectify them.
People don't know what kind of businesses they run. And by businesses, it's more about the types of business services that they have. So I kind of put a lot of business services into four different buckets. So you have like pipelines or like assembly lines, which are, one, you put one thing comes out on the other end. It's one deliverable at every single point in time, and there's like a load of stages, and all of those like the thing needs to go through all of those stages to come out as complete on the other end. So think landing pages, think cold email campaigns, think short form edits, like little widgets, hardware, like actual things that are built on assembly lines, like those kinds of things are like pipelines or assembly lines. Then you have funnels, which is just sales in general. So it's kind of the same structure, or I guess activity grouping as the pipeline, but what goes in doesn't always come out. There are parts of that funnel naturally where things come out. For example, you put a bunch of leads into a campaign in Smart Lead, 10,000 people go in, maybe only 100 replies come out. There's a loss there. Not everything that went in comes out, but you know that there are certain places where bottlenecks will occur, where the funnel is broken, which you need to basically fix. Then you have like event handlers, which are things that need to be like tasks that need to be resolved on a time sensitive basis. So if you have, for example, inbox managers who need to reply to emails on time, that need to get to emails and respond with the right thing. If you have customer service reps who need to be, in the intercom, just fielding responses from people who use your SaaS that are, complaining about certain bugs or trying to find something that they can't find. These are all event handler type activities. And then you have just, I guess, asynchronous activities, which kind of don't fall into most of those buckets, but it's just like you need to do a bunch of things, and it's either to do, doing, or done, or blocked. And that's where general project management, like ClickUp, kind of specializes in those types of activities, but still isn't as good as Airtable in doing those activities. So really the biggest misconception is that people don't understand what they are. And because they don't understand what they are, they can't generate or create project management systems that will benefit them in the way that that activity group needs to be benefited the most. So with pipelines and assembly lines, the quality of what comes out, the quantity of what comes out, the speed at which the thing that comes out, and iterative speed on the pipeline in and of itself. Those are four things that you need to optimize for when you have an activity group that is of a pipeline type stage. Now, if, for example, if you take like cold email lead generation, for example, if you have a system which is a pipeline and that pipeline works okay, but it takes ages to get to the end and spit out a campaign that generates leads, then you have a problem, because if you don't generate leads in your second or third campaigns, you lose your client and you end up churning. But if you can get through that process incredibly quickly and you can iterate incredibly effectively, then you have a higher likelihood of finding a campaign that is actually a killer, that will rip, that will end up getting you the leads and increasing the amount of, how long the client stays with you. And then with event handlers, it's pretty obvious: speed to response, quality of the response. With funnels, it's just the difference between stage 1 and stage 2 of that funnel, stage 2 and stage 3 of that funnel. So improving booking rates, improving positive reply rates, from a cold email perspective here, improving cost per call if you're running an actual ad where you're spending money on getting leads, all of this good stuff. That's kind of where improving, setting up a project management system or setting up a sales system that can help you visualize where these things are going wrong and what can happen in these things. That's where you get the biggest bang for your buck. So when you know what you are, you can build a system that is in line with with what you are for maximum effectiveness. Kind of went in a bit of
Yeah.
a loop there, but that kind of explains my thesis behind it.
And let's take a very concrete example. So let's go a cold email lead gen agency and talk to us a little bit about some of the automations they should have set up. Obviously, they're going to be using something like Apollo or ListKit to get their leads. They're going to have that, and then in Smart Leads, so they're going to be doing their campaigns. What kind of things after that should they be doing?
So I like to divide them up into sort of like basic and then specific. So the basic ones are things like approval workflows. If you basically have a lead that you gave to a client, and you know that what time that Calendly call is supposed to be had, after that call has been made, a message should go straight to the prospect or straight to your client saying, hey, was this prospect qualified? Yes or no? And if it's a yes, they would just click on the button, say yes, and then that will be logged somewhere. That is something that, as an idea, should be in place for basically anybody that needs anything from their client, whether it be a landing page agency that needs approval on the design of the page that they've made, an email marketing agency that needs approval on the copy that they've made. It could be for copywriting agencies that are writing advertorials for people if they want to get a good idea of the general direction. And even earlier on in the cold email process, where some of the people that I know that do lead gen, they have it in their contract where it says any lead that comes from a lead list that you verify is a lead that we are saying is it. You basically have to pay for. Like if they turn up and they were on this lead list that you checked that said was good, you have to pay for it. So you should have an approval workflow set up such that when the lead list is ready to be looked at, it goes straight to the client channel and the client says, hey, yep, this is good, this is bad, so on and so forth. So that's one of them. Another one is like work distribution. So if you have a relatively large team, or you have a bunch of people who need to be assigned different bits of work, and you're trying to balance the workload between a bunch of different people, you can set up an Airtable which will basically add up how many things somebody's actively working on, and then an automation will read that table, find who's working on the least, and give them the next thing that comes out. So like that's another example. And there are a bunch of others that also work along the same lines, like notification systems, where, okay, something's moved from the backlog to, all right, we need to create the scrape for this. The person who's assigned to it, who built the lead lists, they get notified in Slack saying, hey, these are the details of the ICP. Go and scrape the information. Go and, go through the clay tables and do this, that, and the other, and give me a lead list back, and then let me know when this is done. It's like notification systems are another part of that. And if we're talking straight up lead generation as well, you need a reply handler too. So you're going to need webhooks that come out of whatever sending platform that you're using. Those webhooks will be put into Slack to say, hey, so and so just replied. This was the reply. Click here to reply back. And you can get really funky with AI here, but I'm going to leave that for later if we even get into AI and how that blends in with automations. So those are like the basics. And then the specifics are things that you only really need to do if you are doing this as an agency. And in lead gen, there are a lot of people who are able to spin up domains automatically, who are able to create their own master inboxes outside of, like a smart lead or an instantly. and do replies through there, which actually ends up working out with a faster response time than working through the master inbox themselves, because the back end is amazing, but the UI sometimes is a bit iffy, which is something that I've known from experience running Maility as well. Just the front end, there's a lot of memory problems that go into building a lot of SaaSes, that if you're loading a bunch of data into the front end of an app like that, you're going to end up with just things are just going to be slow and things are going to get missed. So if you just zap it out somewhere else and you're able to respond somewhere else, you'll probably get to it before it even appears in the master inbox. So that's something that I've seen as well. And then there's just a bunch of other things as well, which you can automate, like creating campaigns and putting them into Smart Lead. And the list goes on and on and on. It's a very tech-infused type of agency model now, because it's gone from, we are a marketing business that specializes in doing really good copy and getting okay lead lists, to we are pseudo data handling companies that kind of work like software engineers that make really unique, amazing emails based on a bunch of different AI stuff that we've been able to pull together because AI is amazing now. So like lead gen agencies are basically software companies masquerading as marketing companies now. Like that's kind of how I see it. So yeah.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about these AI automation and how you guys are using AI. I assume maybe there's some kind of make integration where you call out to like Claude or to a GPT, but tell us a little bit about how you're using AI.
AI is probably one of the scariest things right now because of how quickly things are actually improving. So when ChatGPT first came out, I was still a little bit on the pessimistic side, where I was like, you know what, this is cool. I don't like the idea of a chatbot. Like, I don't want to speak to a chatbot just to get a response back in text for something. So it's not for me. But then over time, OpenAI starts doing things like structured outputs. It starts releasing GPT-4, GPT-4o, and these other models. And then other types of software start linking AI with like databases, like vector databases, where you can just put a library of information in there, and then the AI will just read the information and spit something out for you. Then there's like AI fine tunes, which actually really capture someone's voice particularly well, like almost scarily well. I know people who are writing tweets that have completely sounded like them that they've just never touched. They just put an idea into a chatbot, and then the chatbot spits out and puts this tweet up, which sounds exactly like them, but they didn't actually write it. Where AI can be used nowadays is, and this is kind of like the main idea or the main principle behind it, AI is really good at turning structured data into unstructured data and unstructured data into structured data. So if you have, for example, a setup where in Airtable you have the information about the ideal client, you have information about who they're going after, and you know what the plan is for the next campaign that you want to run. If you took that information and you put it into Claude, or you put it into an AI agent that's made in like NAN or something along those lines, you can have the agent look at the information that you told it about how to write cold email copy, and then a fine-tuned GPT model will make the exact copy without any drafts. Like, it's that good now. One button, here's my copy, all of my email variations and all of my follow-ups right here. And then that can then just move something else over into another part of the Kanban. So like, there's any kind of creation of copy is one of those things. It can also create code, which is turning unstructured into structured. So there are certain automations that I've made, especially in the cold email realm, and even like onboarding information, where I get a contract, for example, and I just download the entirety of the text of that contract, get a summary of that from GPT, and then use the summary of GPT to create a structured, basically like snippet of code, which will populate a bunch of things in different places. And because you can create code out of text and you can create text out of code, the possibilities now are basically endless. So if you're trying to create a copy of any kind or code of any kind, and you have like training data, like things that it's meant to follow, then AI basically has any and every use case just done, just like that.
Now, for companies that are looking to implement some AI in their business, where do you think are some like early lifts? We talked about, cold email. Are there places you've seen for your clients where it's like, you got to be adding AI here?
The main thing is really for copy. As far as AI is concerned, when it comes to certain things, and this is kind of it's usually just dependent on the use case. But classification systems using AI is another version of, okay, we're turning something unstructured into structured. If you can have it so that, let's say, for example, and we'll talk about inbox management systems here, right? Let's say you have an inbox manager and the inbox manager, this is something that I've actually done as well. So like, this is like, I can speak on behalf of how effective what I'm about to say is. If you have team members who are event handlers, i.e., they need to get to something in a time sensitive manner, and you can send the message that was received to a classification system that will classify what type of message it is. You can then you can change things as far as priorities are concerned. So for my own inbox manager, what we did when we had a client that we were sending egregious amounts of cold emails for, we were having so many replies coming in that she was working 15 hours a day, and 80% of the 80% of the actual replies were do not contact, or they were out of office. Sorry, more so out of office than do not contact. So all of the out of office, hey, we're not going to be here until the 30th of September. Hey, we're out of office for the next 7 days. Hey, I'm on vacation with my kids for the next 5 days. All of those unstructured bits of information just got fed into a GPT. That GPT classified it as a out of office. And then because you can do this in Smart Lead, we basically just set it so that the GPT would find what day they were back and then restart the campaign on the day that they would return. So that's like one branch. The other branch would be do not contact. If they said do not contact, like stop, remove, don't message me again, remove me from your list, any kind of like official types of information, they would be marked as do not contact, and they'll be added to the global block list. If they were asking for an information request, it could either send a templatized email or just get sent straight to the inbox manager because it's their job to handle that, and they have a bunch of templates to handle that. If it's a not interested, it's again marked as not interested and just removed from all notifications. So what ended up happening was the hundreds of replies that were coming in per day that were taking 15 hours a day for one person to do started taking 3 hours a day. 80% of the workload immediately just cut. So if you're not using AI to classify waste, then you're missing a trick as well. So that's kind of like one of the biggest examples of something that I've used, not just for myself, but also for clients as well.
Yeah, I really need to. This makes me feel like I'm getting off this call and I'm opening up Airtable and everything and just trying to figure it all out. So let's go into some of the rapid fire questions because you've been very generous with your time. What's one bad recommendation you hear in your profession, area of expertise, business?
Bad recommendation. Don't cold email doesn't work for ABC. Cold outreach doesn't work for XYZ. I've fallen in that trap before, and the reason why I have historically fallen in that trap is because my own experience has told me that, and the experience of the people who are around me have also confirmed that bias, which means I've now found it safe to say this doesn't work, this doesn't work, this doesn't work. And the more that I say it, the more that I end up believing it. But it only takes one person to do something that you didn't realize, which was like a 5% tweak to what you were originally doing, to basically realize that this conviction that you had in your head is wrong. So I make a habit of never saying A, B, and C does not work for cold email. Unless it's B2C, and I've even seen one or two B2C ideas work for cold email, it works. And don't tell yourself that it doesn't. It's usually because you are not privy to what other people are doing, or you're doing something in a way that if you made a small tweak to, or a systematic tweak to, you could find success with.
Perfect. So if you had one business book to recommend to the audience, what would it be?
See, it's either Ready, Fire, Aim or $100 Million Offers. But I don't even know if I'm probably going to like punch myself in the face afterwards because I'm probably missing a book that I know I should 100% put down there.
Yeah, this is the first time we've had Ready, Fire, Aim, but good book. If you only had one social media channel to follow in each of the core areas being health, wealth, and relationships, and you can't include your own, who would you follow? Could be a YouTube channel, could be Twitter.
Who's the most well-rounded person?
No,
See,
no, no. It can be different. So it could be like health, could be like Andrew
health
Huberman.
is
And it's
so and
like,
so, wealth is so and so. Oh, okay.
exactly.
Wealth actually would be Alex Hormozy, but I wouldn't tell people to start with his most current videos. Or in fact, I tell them to start with his most current videos, but I would also tell them to go back 2-3 years ago. Start from the very, very beginning, because some of the stuff that he was saying was so specific and so particular and so still useful to this day that people just completely miss it. So I'd say Hormozy on wealth. On health, Renaissance periodization. He's doing like jokey stuff to try and increase his branding and stuff like that, but he was doing just pure hard presentations on how to just get more muscle. So I would say him for that. And relationships, Chris Williamson. Anything on the Modern Wisdom podcast.
Now, if you could recommend one album to the audience, what would it be?
An album? But I don't know what the audience would like.
Doesn't matter. It's your recommendation. It's what you like.
I know. I have a very, very extensive catalog when it comes to music, that as far as like taste is concerned. So me recommending, because I could recommend some JPEG Mafia, but that would scare off like 99% of the people that I would actually have listening to this. I'd probably go with 1999 by Joey Badass.
1990. I like it. Great album. If you best purchase under $500 that you made in the last year?
Either this mic, or I don't know about this chair yet, because I'm so used. I like this. This is a new chair. Again, I'm gonna hit myself for this, because I know that there's something that I've probably spent. So, Poor Charlie's Almanac. That book cost me about £90, and I understood what mental models were from that book alone, and it's less about what the book in and of itself has in it, because it's 90% of it just doesn't apply to most people. But the psychology of human misjudgment and the conversation about practical thought, it's called Practical Thought About Practical Thought, that has opened up a realm of understanding, which has led me to find people like Naval Ravikant. I mean, I got it from Ty Lopez. It was recommended from like his like list of best 50 books back in the day. But it just opened me up to a bunch of people who talk about mental models and speak on mental models, like Naval Ravikant, John Boyd, Farnham Street Blog, and a bunch of other people as well, like the guy who wrote Dilbert. And all of those little things just kind of like created the lattice work of understanding of what I sort of like carry around with me today, basically.
All right, so Poor Charlie's Almanac, and then he also mentioned the mic, and that would be, I believe, the Shure SM7B.
Yep.
All right, perfect. All right, now this is our final rapid fire. So let's imagine you wake up tomorrow, everyone forgets about you, no more job, no bank account, social media, all at zero, and all you have left is your knowledge, a credit card, laptop, iPhone, and an apartment of your city of choosing. How would you build back your business to be profitable in the next 30 days?
What's the limit on the credit card?
I'll give you 20.
I wish I was sharper financially as far as like how to make that 20K work for me, as far as like taking out loans and all that good stuff. But I think with 20K, you have, you know what, let me not get too specific, because I was about to ask you like, oh, how much am I paying in rent and things like that, which is just like, let's forget about that. I would probably go to New York. I wouldn't even be in London. I go to New York, and I would go to cigar lounges, and this is just like as far as like where I would even work, because I'm not even trying to work inside of my house for the most part. I'll do that for like monk mode, and then I'll leave that at night and go to all these places where I can meet people who just need certain things being done. I have a knowledge base and a skill base which actually could be beneficial to people who are relatively rich, which means that me being in the rooms with the people who are relatively rich and just like speaking to them and just showing them that I'm hungry will probably offer me opportunities that I would, not get in the first place. So I would, one, commit to an egregious amount of outreach just to get my feet back on the ground. I know cold email as a skill quite proficiently. I will spend as much money as humanly possible trying to get leads. I will close those leads, and then I will start an agency of some sort, probably again in the AI and automation space, whilst it's still a trend. And then two, I will take the excess. And again, I'm not spending any of that money. I'm just making all of the money and I'm just going to sit on it. And then two, I'll put myself in positions around certain people who can either bring me in on something or just tell me what problems that they have that other people would have. And then, you know, get into those rooms and see where I can have some sort of relevance in that room, basically.
All right. So what I'm hearing is we're going to use the credit card. We're going to start going to places where rich people hang out, maybe some private lounges, like rich hotels where you can just have more conversations. And then you're going to go probably scrape a bunch of emails, get a smart lead account, and then start ripping cold emails as you do kind of the online game and then the in-person game where you're working at. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, it doesn't sound amazing.
No, that's how it works. You know, that's what you would do.
Yeah, I mean, like that's like step one and like step three, but putting me on the spot here and without any kind of like ability to prepare, that's like the first thing that comes to mind. The moment I actually sit down and think about it, the plan probably changes drastically, and there's probably some things that I can do which are all legal, which I would probably end up doing to get more money quicker. So,
hey, well, we love that. So, where can people connect with you more online? Maybe they're here and they're like, man, I don't have any systems built out and I would love someone to, you know, take that off my plate or consult on that. Where can they find you?
Just type my name, Sheni Salami, Sheni, and then salami like the sausage, just anywhere on Twitter or YouTube. I'm probably most active on YouTube right now, or icarusgrowth.com for just like what I do as far as like my services are concerned. But yeah, I'm going to try and be a lot more active on Twitter and even LinkedIn as well. I've been missing out on LinkedIn too, to be fair. So you're going to start seeing my face popping up on people's feeds.
All right. And if anyone's not watching the video, it is a good looking face. And if you listen this far, you probably really like us. So you should give this 5-star rating and probably just send it to your friend. But after you've done that, you should probably turn this episode off and get back to growing your agency. Jenny, thank you so much for coming on here, and to everyone else, we'll talk soon.